Hello there. It's lovely to see you. Well, we can't see you, but you can see us, all being well. If you are watching this on Facebook on our live stream, it's lovely to have you watching. Makeup done, hair done, and we're all ready to entertain you and be informative for the next sort of 25 minutes, half an hour or so. The coaching hour is what you're about to watch. I'm Paul Rotherham, and I'm joined once again by my two co-hosts from Coaches Network South Africa in the form of Mareka and Mary. Good day, Mareka.
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
And Mary, who's
Hello.
sitting amongst some really large blades of grass. It reminds me of that movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Did you ever watch that?
You're giving
look
away
like...
our age.
Oh, you've been downsized, Mary. Sorry. The voice you heard there. Say again.
I said the grass is indicative of growth.
Absolutely. Oh, it's fantastic. Growth is good, and it's green, and it's peaceful, and it's healthy, just like you. Now, you heard another voice there that was not the voice of Mary, nor the voice of Mareka. That is because once again, and it happens so often to me, I am literally the thorn among the roses. It's three ladies and a guy once again. Sorry, not much I can do about that. It's just there seems to be more lady coaches than gent coaches for some reason. But be that as it may, Mareka, we've got a wonderful guest, and it's a lady who I remember very well because this entire project, the coaching hour, actually started when we were back on the radio a couple of years ago. And I remember clearly the person you're about to introduce for today's topic. I remember very clearly Michelle coming into the studio. We had a wonderful session, and I think we're going to have an equally enjoyable session today. So let's meet our guest.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Yes, we have Michelle Bennetts again with us today. And yeah, she's a master coach, a published author, and an Enneagram specialist for 15 years. So she's been coaching and doing the Enneagram as well with thousands of clients internationally. So welcome, Michelle. We are very excited to talk to you again today. But for everybody that's meeting you for the first time, just tell us a little bit of who is Michelle, and maybe as an introduction to the Enneagram, give us some background on what that is if the people listening today have never heard the word Enneagram.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Marek, for that introduction. Thank you, Paul, and lovely to see you, Mary, again. Always with beautiful smiles, and I'm really grateful for the invitation to talk about something that, Mareka, as you know, I'm just so passionate about, having used it for so long. I have been working with and learning about the Enneagram for, as Mareka said, 15 years. And it all came about. I started my coaching, learning how to coach later on in life. When I left school, I studied musical theater. I wanted to be on stage. And then that was like, no, I'll become a flight attendant. And that was really fun. And I started up a business in aviation. And kind of 10 years down the line, I was like, I'm so bored. Like, what do I want to do? If I really want to do something, what would it be? And the moment that I settled on coaching, it was like, oh my gosh, it was rainbows and unicorns. I was like, this is where I want to be. And whilst I was learning how to use, coaching and how to coach, my fellow students were throwing out these numbers like, oh, you're a 3, you're a 2, oh, you're a 7. And I was like, what are we talking about? And that is where I started my journey with the Enneagram. They said, no, it's the Enneagram. And I was intrigued. And so Enneagram is a Greek word. Ennea is the Greek word for 9. So there are 9 personality types. So the Enneagram is a personality type framework. Ennea is Greek for 9. There are 9 types. And gram is Greek for the diagram, the framework itself. So if you are watching it, you'll actually see the diagram behind me. If not, you can look up the Enneagram and you'll see that there is a very particular framework of the Enneagram with the 9 types distributed around a circle. And there are some lines that are interconnecting the types, which are very important as we delve into the Enneagram. So I did a lot of workshops here in South Africa. There are some really good teachers, but I did the majority. I did my first real training with the Enneagram Institute in San Francisco, and that was a real eye-opener. And then I heard about these guys in Cape Town who had developed this Enneagram training for coaches. And I was like, well, you know, South Africa versus America. I think in South Africa, we tend to play small. You know, everything's better if it's American or if it's from Europe or whatever. And I came across this company called Integrative Enneagram Solutions. They're based, their head office was in Cape Town at the time. And my goodness, what I learned there and the products that they have developed over the years, they've developed what is known as the Integrative Enneagram Questionnaire, which we'll talk a little bit about that during the course of the session today. But it is proven to be the most accurate Enneagram questionnaire available. And it includes more information than any other Enneagram test you will ever get. And I was very passionate about bringing this to corporate, because if I know who you are, if I know who I am, and I know how you are, this is how relationships are built. This is how we know how to connect with each other. This is how I can start to see my own patterns and which ones are working for me and which ones aren't. And that really made me passionate about pursuing the Enneagram. So now I teach coaches around the world. I just finished off in Asia and Europe. I was West USA the month before. So I've coached I've taught over 1,000 coaches worldwide to use this this questionnaire, and of course going into big organizations around the world and showing them how to utilize it to grow oneself, to grow the team, and to grow organizations. So this framework is, first of all, a gift to yourself, to really understand yourself at a deep level and do your own self-healing and your own self-growth. There's also a tool where you can have a questionnaire for your relationship. So for individual relationships, how do I speak to my partner? If they're that personality and I'm that personality, how can we have conversations around our relationships, the way we parent, our finances, our communication? And then we also have reports for the team. Organizations need to know how team dynamics work. So all of these have been coming out the woodwork and just improving the lives and connections of human beings.
It's fascinating. I'm very impressed by the fact that the integrative Enneagram was developed by South Africans. I did not know that.
Yes.
Very interesting,
yes.
because I studied psychometry. I'm a registered psychometrist. Now, back in the day, if I can call it that, but it's still the case, you know, that you had your 16 PF, you know, and those type of personality tests. And of late, I've heard the word Enneagram quite a lot, you know, in corporate. People are much more aware of this assessment, which means there's something to the accuracy of this assessment.
Definitely. It has exploded over the last 10 years because we've had people like Integrative going into scientific rigorous validity. And they have, and we're seeing it, you know, the Enneagram, if we date it back, I mean, the Enneagram itself goes back decades. We can see frameworks of the Enneagram going back and back and back and back. But the framework itself, if we, the beginning of how we started to using it, how we use it today, was that in the 1920s, Gurdjieff, who's a spiritual teacher, brought us the Enneagram framework, but it was more on a spiritual journey. And in the 1920s, Claudio Naranjo actually brought in the personality types. He was a very well-learned psychologist and psychiatrist. And so this isn't just some newfangled thing that's popped up in kind of new age culture. It's actually been something that has been building with the awareness of human beings over the years. So back in the day, it was very much used as a kind of spiritual development tool, which it still is. But now that we've been able to articulate that this is for human growth and human development, you know, the corporate world is going, that's what we need. This isn't a woo-woo, let's do kumbaya, even though Nothing wrong with people doing that. But it shows us how we need to have more human being communications. We're having a lot of human doing conversations in corporate, and we need to start having more human being conversations so that people feel connected, they feel seen, they know themselves, and they know where they need to grow. And that kind of defined pathway really gives corporates a lot of comfort and input on what they need to provide for this person in order for them to really flourish, or how this team or organization can succeed. So it's taken the kind of mythology not out of it, but this is a tool that tells us where to go. And we want to get moving because the world is a very fast-paced world. So where's the start line? Let us begin. And the IEQ9 does that for us.
So jump in here. It's no secret, as you'll find out when you hear the rest of this episode. We were given the opportunity to do this thanks to Michelle and the team that's behind the whole integrative Enneagram. And I tell you, one of the things that I loved about it, we'll go into more detail shortly, but one of the things that I like about it is, as long as you are honest, and that's important with any of these types of questions, you've got to be honest and truthful to yourself. The feedback, and it's a long report, but what I saw of my feedback, and I'm sure the ladies feel the same, was just staggering. We were joking about it, in fact, before we started this recording, where Michelle said, I wouldn't be at all surprised if at the end of the report you feel like I've been stalking you for the last 5 years. And I mean, you're making light of it, but that is exactly how it feels. It's literally like you do this test. I think it was 119 or 117, somewhere around there, questions. And these are fairly explicit questions, very easy to understand. They are questions about you and how you rate yourself. And basically, you're prioritizing a number of statements in terms of how they speak to you or describe you. But I was just blown away by the accuracy in this. And as you said, it's not as though there are only 9 permutations here. There's hundreds. And the fact that just through those 100-odd questions, the report's able to be so accurate, that to me blew my mind, because on this show, we've spoken to many coaches who've got all sorts of tools and techniques and ways of doing things. And with no disrespect to any of them, a lot of those processes are quite long journeys. You know, it's an 8-week, 3-month, 6-month, 1-year practice, have it become part of your life, where this wasn't. This was probably an hour doing a test, and then bang, there's the results.
Absolutely, Paul. And this was something that I was mentioning to Mareka as well, is why people appreciate it so much. As a coach, if you don't have a very in-depth tool that really gets to the heart of the matter, you're going to be spending about 5 to 6 sessions getting to that thing. Whereas if we do have a proper technique or tool to use, we can start coaching the deep stuff from session 1, which for me, that makes me ecstatic. Because our defense mechanisms and our blind spots, they're all under the surface. It takes us a while to get to them. Whereas as soon as you've completed your report, we have that, and we can work with them straight away. So yes, it is an in-depth questionnaire. Many people, they want to go for these free online questionnaires, and on those questionnaires, yes, they put them together, and that's great. It's a wonderful starting point for some, but there's maybe 15, 20 standard statements that you need to reply to, and it's only going to give you the type. It's not going to give you your full profile. So this report that you have received, you can coach yourself and work with the coach for years. As Paul said, it is a detailed report, and it will continue to support you. There is no other questionnaire out there that gives you that kind of in-depth look at yourself. And I was also joking with Mareka earlier on, saying, if you look at the description of the number and you don't really like it, then we've definitely we've typed you correctly.
That's the problem, because I was reading it and I'm like, what? Because literally, like a few days before I got the report, I was actually wondering for myself, I wonder if people perceive me in this way. I wonder if people can see, because I know myself and how I react, but you tend to think that you put a bit of a mask on, you know. And when I read it, it was, wow, okay, so people actually perceive me in this way, which is not necessarily very nice for me.
So
Um,
you brought in a very valid point, Mareka, right there, which is very important for your listeners to get from the Enneagram. There are many personality tools out there, and they all have value. What makes the Enneagram so different is that it does not speak to behavior. It speaks to core motivation. So we could do the same thing, but we would do it for a different reason. So we cannot tell a person's Enneagram type by how they are showing up. We can all show up confident. We can all do, we could all be mowing Mary's got the grass going there. We could all have the desire to go and mow the grass. One might say, because I need neatness in my life and things need to be organized. One wants it, I want my garden to be the best looking garden. Another one might say, oh, the kids are getting up for school. It's crazy town inside. I'm going outside for some peace and quiet, and I'm going to mow the lawn. So there are three profoundly different reasons. One wants peace, one wants to be the best, one wants to be perfect. Three very different core motivations. So core motivation, what I describe it, and we have 9 of them in the Enneagram, it's almost like the theme song that sings through your bones, right? We all want to do the right thing, but a type 1 who's a strict perfectionist wants to do the right thing in every aspect, whether it's the best friend, a good father, a good provider, a good business person, highly principled in absolutely everything that they do. And so you can sense there's a lot of inner pressure of, I've got to do the right thing. Other types might go, I've got to do it right, but it's going to be a trait or a characteristic. It's not the song that sings in my bones. So the behavior is one thing, but the Enneagram is what's going, that if we think of the iceberg model, we tend to get to know each other based on what people say, how they look, what they do. What we don't get to see is what Mareka, you use that word mask. And our personality types are a bit of a mask. It's a mask that we put on to engage with the world that keeps us safe. And we do that in these very different ways. And it's all determined around, how we perceive the world to be. And I was astonished when I started with my Enneagram studies. We used to have narrative panels. So we'd have workshops with like 50 people, and they'd get all the 1s up and all the 2s and all the 3s, and they'd talk about how they see the world. And I'm sitting there going like, how can you possibly see the world that way? Like, I don't get it. And we do, when we understand the 9 styles, we really do see that each type sees the world in a different way. They translate the world in a different way. And this is where conflict within, ourselves, with each other and, with the world itself, is because we are limited to our lens. So this is the other aspect that is so unique and very important for us to remember, is that unlike other personality questionnaires or tests out there, the Enneagram is not designed to put you in a box, right? So you have all 9 types inside of you. It's like being left-handed or right-handed. Just because you write with your left hand doesn't mean you don't have a right. If you had to injure your dominant arm, your handwriting would be messy and it would take long to do. But if your arm was in a cast for a few months, that writing would become neater and quicker. So the aim of the Enneagram is, let us land on what is your core type. This is the way that you've seen the world your whole life. And now let's look at, and here the word integrative or integration comes in. How do I start to bring in all the other types so that I have different ways of speaking, of relating, of tackling situations, or growing in different areas? So when we land on our type, as you guys have done with the questionnaire, that's the easy part. the work that we do now is actually stretching into the other aspects of the Enneagram.
And when you do stretch, it's not like your type is going to change, right? Because if I look at my type, I don't know, I'm making assumptions, but if someone else might read it, they would think, how is Marijke a coach? She's not very compassionate.
You're a very compassionate person.
But very dominating, very domineering,
Pushy.
Yes, very pushy. Always getting things my way.
Michelle, it makes me think about I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Johara's window.
It rings a bell.
So that whatever you said now made me think of Johara's window, because it's 4 quadrants, and each one is different. So the first one is what people think about you, and how you see yourself and how other people see you. Then the second window is how other people see you, but you don't see that in yourself. And then it carries on. I can't remember all of them, but the last one is where nobody knows anything. You don't know anything about yourself and others don't know. And that's the arena that you have to grow from getting out of the other 3 arenas.
Yes.
It sounds similar to that. Is that?
There's elements there that overlay beautifully into the Enneagram, most definitely, because we come, with the Enneagram, before we get to understanding about ourselves, and, we talk about numbers, and nobody is a number here, right? So, Paul might be resonating with the Enneagram type 1, which is the strict perfectionist, but that is just a personality layer. We are far more than our personality types. Personality is simply a way of understanding ourselves. So we're not stereotyping and going, oh, Paul, the 1 has got, I'm not going to assume that you have every single quality of a 1, but you have the experience of that, wanting things to be right and wanting things to be good. Having what you need to do things in the best possible way. So we'll talk about those 9 types, but it's not about boxing in. But before we even know what our types are, that type is actually running us. Right? So that whole got to be perfect, got to be good, got to do it right. Or Marijke, may I share your number? Or you would like to share your number? What did you?
Yes, you can. Number 8.
So type 8. So Marijke came up as the active controller. So if I'm not aware of that, the controller is running me. So everything has to be controlled, and I'm in the lead. I'm running ahead of the team. I'm taking care of everything. Once I become aware of the habits of my type, now I can start to say, okay, no, I'm not going to take control here. I'm going to let somebody else take the lead and make it happen so that they can develop their own ability to do it right. Or for Paul, as a strict perfectionist, I see this script and it's missing this and it's missing that. And I'll just fill it in and do it myself because then I know it's perfect. If I'm running the 1, I'm saying, no, I'm not going to correct it. I'm going to send it back to the person so that they can do it the right way and learn themselves how to grow perfection within their own personality profile and their own skill set, and do the work that I need to do. So then we start running the program. The program isn't running us, and we can start to see where the pitfalls are. So in every single Enneagram type, to all listening and to all watching today, there is no type that is better than another. Every single one has its strengths and its challenges, which are beautifully laid out in the report. And what we want to be is the best version of ourselves. We want to know ourselves so well that we can see when we're about to fall into a habit that's not serving us. We can lean into the gifts of what that type is serving us. And we can integrate all of the 9 and say, I need to use the characteristics of this type. And to your question, Marijke, it doesn't make us another type. Our core type stays the same through our lives. Think about it that your personality core type is your ice cream, And the rest of the Enneagram are the sauces and the sprinkles that you put on top of it, that give it more flavor or more pizzazz or give it an extra tang. But the ice cream is still you. And you don't want to be anybody else but you, because you matter. And, you know, if we're starting with this work as a personal journey or as a working journey, you know, I do believe in my heart that all of us have a desire to make a mark in this world. They want to leave some kind of legacy, whether it be with family, friends, or even, you know, on the global stage. And how do we do that if we don't know ourselves and what we want to bring to the world and who we are in the most authentic way possible? And that requires some self-reflection. And that mark that we make, kind of giving back my age, you know, that mark isn't it, you know, the ways we used to scratch on our school desk, Michelle was here. we want to make a mark that's a little bit bigger than that, or in Koki on the bathroom stall, right? It's not the mark I'm talking about. It's looking at, how do I know myself so well that I can direct my energy to places in ways that shape a situation in a beautiful way, that I can look back and I can see that when I had that interaction with that person, there was a change there. I was a change agent in that conversation. And the Enneagram gives us so many beautiful pathways of exploring how to do that, how to grow and help others grow as well.
So, Michelle, what I'm hearing you say is that we need to become observant of
Yes.
what we're saying and doing.
Absolutely. And that is hard. You know what, Mary, we are because it's so much easier to look outside ourselves. Look what Mary's doing. Look what Mareka's doing. Look at what Paul just said. Self-reflection is one of the hardest things, because I'd rather look at everybody else than myself. And the challenge that comes with that is we're putting all of our focus on things that we don't have power to control or change. Where we do have control is looking at ourselves, questioning our own thoughts, questioning, you know, why am I behaving this way or showing up this way? What do I need to do differently? We don't ask those questions because that's Aina. You know, I don't want to know about that. It's easier to just focus on everybody else. So this is the Enneagram journey never ends, because we are always growing and we're going through different stages in life and we're facing different scenarios in life. You know, we all looked at COVID. You know, I'm a type 3, which is an achiever, which means I love to work. Anything that I can I work, and globally I work in time zones. So I'll work South Africa during the day, I'll work America at night. And then when it was online, and I still do a lot of online work now. But when the world just said, sorry, we're closed for business, I was like, what the actual? Like, nobody's working. Like, I'm not getting emails. People don't want to, what am I going to do? And it was a completely different stage. So our Enneagram types, our situations will change. And so our Enneagram types will continue to evolve. So our types are born from nature and nurture. You know, we're born with it. So we know the advert in South Africa, maybe you were born with it, maybe it's Maybelline. So we were born with it, but of course our world shapes us as well. So just because you're a 5 does not mean that every single 5 is going to look the same. First of all, there are so many layers to a 5, and also they have not lived the same lives, and so they may look very different, but their core motivation when you talk to them will still be the same.
I'm going to jump in here, if I may, and I'm just a little bit concerned, for the sake of time, that if we get into each Enneagram in this podcast, we're going to start really running out of time. And I would also love to do justice to the subject. And forgive me jumping in here, Mareka. You and I didn't discuss this at all before we recorded the show, and I haven't been part of the planning. But I'm just thinking, before we do get into them, because from what I remember of us doing this on the radio, it can be quite detailed. I think you've given us some lovely background, Michelle, and you've kind of sown the seed for what the Enneagram is. My suggestion would be that we perhaps move going into each one of these 9 in a separate recording or recordings in future podcasts. Your thoughts, Mareka, Michelle, Mary?
Yes.
Yeah. Carry on.
I think that would be great. I think, you know, when Mareka and I were chatting today as well, is let's just plant the seeds of the Enneagram so that your listeners can see the value. I mean, Paul, just your own, you know, experience with it. We've communicated just how rigorous and how useful this tool is. We can have another session where we'll just briefly go through the 9. And do it a little bit of justice. So I would be delighted to come back and share that with you. But if anybody wants to get into the Enneagram prior to that, Mareka, you've got my contact details there. You can contact me if you want to complete your Enneagram questionnaire. We can get that report done for you, and you can start your Enneagram journey. But more than happy to come back and go even
Wonderful.
deeper into the 9 types.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
And I think something I'd just like to touch on, because I'm surrounded by coaches here, oddly enough, whose names all start with M, but Michelle, Mareka, and Mary are all coaches. And what I would hate for you to think, in having listened to this podcast, is that the Enneagram is specifically for people who are in the coaching world, because it really isn't. Yes, it's a wonderfully valuable tool for a coach, because a coach would be able to have a look at that report and straight away dive into the deep end in terms of assisting and helping and getting you on the right path sooner than later. But from what I saw of my own report, and I only just touched the surface of it, I am a number 1, by the way. You gave that as an example, and that is exactly what I am. A strict perfectionist, I think, was the classification. There's so much value there from a personal perspective. So please, if you're watching this or listening to this thinking, oh, this is just a tool for coaches, no, it isn't. Not at all. It's a tool for you, and an incredibly valuable tool. And it's almost like a handbook, I think, for your life that you should keep with you, because once you've identified, and there might be some changes here and there, as you said, slightly nature versus nurture, but once you've identified your Enneagram type, I think that can form the basis of improving everything in every aspect of your life. I really do.
Very true. And Paul, to your points, the report that you get also includes some developmental tools, so you can actually coach yourself. There's questions that you can work with this for years and years and years. And I'll just leave with one thing, and I'll let you guys close off. Just a beautiful example. I brought the Enneagram to a school of young kids many years ago, but it was not for typing, and we'll talk about that in another session maybe. You know, you don't type young kids. They're still developing, they're still growing, they're still learning about themselves. So I brought the Enneagram into this classroom as a way of understanding 9 ways of being. You know, we show up in different ways, and we want to be able to play in all those 9 spaces. So really just looking at it from a characteristic point of view. And these were 13, 14-year-old kids, so youngsters. And at the end of the session, they had to fill in a little slip and say, what did you learn from the session? And this one chap, 13 years old, wrote down on his slip, I now understand that without one of the types, the world wouldn't work.
Yo,
Wow.
that's profound.
I ugly cried all the way home. That's all I can say. It was the most profound thing I've ever heard.
Children are absolutely much more higher sensitive than we are. Their sensory perception, I believe, far exceeds adults because of the not having the filters that we've developed over the years. I've learned so much from little children.
Yeah.
I mean, that come out of their mouths. Where did they get it from?
Yeah,
it's from their own inner connection to higher wisdom.
And I think, Mary, the difference with children is they're not afraid to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, a child will tell you exactly what they're thinking and feeling, and they will very often say it without any concern for how you might react. Or, I mean, somebody the other day, I have to tell you this, somebody the other day, they heard that I was training for comrades. She's a little 9-year-old girl, and I was doing a marathon the next day. And she said to me, she said, I hope you have a nice run. And I thought, oh, that's very nice. And she said, and that you fall and break your leg and that you die. And I listened to this and I could not believe that these words had actually come out of a 9-year-old's, where she'd obviously, I think, been exposed to some TV show or something. And she thought that this was funny, wishing me well for the marathon. And then one sentence later, hoping that I fall and break my leg. And then the third sentence, hoping that I die. Now, as weird as it was really funny. But could you imagine an adult saying that? I mean, for an adult, and in an adult's world, there is no humor in that at all.
Yeah.
But children literally do and say what they feel with no thought for the consequences or the recourse. So yeah, I think this would possibly even be more accurate for them as a tool. Would a brief answer, do they still have the same questions regardless of their age, Michelle, or is it a slightly different way of doing the Enneagram?
There are many ways of doing the Enneagram. This test would not be suitable for youngsters because it is quite a complex test. The language itself, it requires, we've been successful with matrics and upwards because the language is quite high language. But, there are things like cards out there. There's information where you can get your child to read the descriptions and tell you what they think they resonate with. The thing one has to realize is that for an Enneagram type to emerge as correct, I need to have a level of self-awareness and self-identification. And if we're looking at our younger years, the way that we are showing up is to survive with our parents. Then we're acting out to survive with our peers. And fit in there. So it's only kind of once I start to self-actualize, which is sometime around 16, 17, where I can see who I am as I am I'm not part of the peer, I'm not in the melting pot of my peer group, or I'm not in that survival stage of needing love and security that I show up in a certain way with my parentage. I can see myself as an individual. That's when the Enneagram test starts to really become zoned in. And just to the point, and then I'll shut up, I promise. Mary, to your point as well, is that, and it does relate to the Enneagram. We are truthful, and to what you said as well, Paul. We're more honest as we're younger because we haven't started editing ourselves yet. As we grow into life, we start to find out this behavior isn't okay. Stop that. Showing up like that gets me into trouble. I'll stop doing that. Teacher says this, or society says this. And we slowly but surely start editing ourselves that by the time we get to this age, we're like, where did I go? Like, I'm not the person I used to be. And the Enneagram or any other of the coaching tools that you want to use, or, it's about bringing yourself into wholeness again. Every single human behavior belongs. And we want to invite that back into our lives and know that we are human beings and we have all these human behaviors and they're all trying to serve us in one way or another. So thank you to everybody for having me. I'm going to shut up. I know I ramble. But I look forward to seeing you all again.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. We can really see that you are very passionate about this topic. And we would love to have you again. I think if we can have a discussion about each type, it will be very valuable. And also relationships, because like Paul said, it's not just for coaches or anyone in consulting as a tool. For your personal life, if you are in whatever type of relationship, to understand each other better, I think that is very valuable. To understand your partner better, but also, in corporates, to understand the team dynamics and how to just work better together, because we are different and we make assumptions. We make assumptions about people. So thank you so much, Michelle. I really enjoyed the session, and also enjoyed looking in terms of myself and what I need to change or adapt or develop on. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Michelle,
Thank
please
you,
send me
ladies.
another email.
I will do, Mary. I'm going to do it straight after this.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to your company in the next session.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.